You're watching the 5 Minute Bark Podcast on YouTube. If you like this episode, you just may like many more. Subscribe today by clicking the red subscribe button in the top right-hand corner. And good morning, 5 Minute Bark listeners. We've got a really interesting story here today. It's one of those ones you really enjoy to listen to here today. It's success without trying to get success. And it's a really fun story we're going to share here today. And I've got a gentleman by the name of Josh Elizetxe, and if I said that right, I think I did, here today on my podcast. And we actually met through possibly renting my condominium out here in La Jolla. And things didn't quite work out because of some circumstances, but we became friends. And I've learned a lot about Josh, and he's learned about me. So we've been kind of working together a little bit here. But he's got a great story I want to share with you guys here today. And it starts at a young age. And he's going to share some really cool things here today. He might ramble on a lot, but he's excited about what he does. And I want you to understand the value in how his story started and how maybe it can help you to understand something in your life that you're doing could on accident become your future, your wealth, your future, your excitement. So Josh, say hello to everybody out there.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. So Josh is living in Scottsdale, Arizona, one of my favorite places in the whole wide world. We should just house swap because I love it out there. I'm a golf fanatic. And he lives out in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he's got a company. And let's talk about that.
Yeah, so our company has kind of transitioned over the last 7 or so years when it was just me learning how to do everything. And so, where it started was me learning how to create websites, and that was purely out of curiosity, purely out of just wanting to do something fun. And I was 13, 14 years old at the time, and so. When I picked up a book that said Web Design for Dummies, and I was actually reading those books because there was a program at the library that I was at that I would go to, and the more boring books that you read, the more points you got, and if you got points, you got tickets to baseball games and all these goodies, and so naturally, I've always been very competitive with myself, and so I went after those boring books, and one of them happened to be Web Design for Dummies, and I figured, oh, what the heck, it had a bunch of pictures in it. So I read through it, and then I'm like, wow, this is actually kind of interesting. And so I read through another, and then I read through another, and that same aisle all about web design. And so, after learning how to build websites, I started to create my own blogs, which you can still do for free, and I did for free at the time on Google, or actually Google didn't buy them yet at this time, I don't believe. But it was the Blogspot blogger platform, which now hardly anyone uses. Now it's all WordPress. But I started creating some of those blogs, and so anyway, one thing led to another, and my company Forsold, which now owns several other entities and several other products and several other companies. But from that. Just through word of mouth of people finding out that I knew how to make websites, they would come to me and say, hey, I got this dry cleaning business and we need a new website. And back in 2006, 2007, 2008, not everyone had a website. And so I said, okay, sure, I'll make it for you. And in the beginning, I didn't charge anything for it because I didn't know you could. I honestly,
you didn't.
I had no idea. And so I just cool. I'm like, cool, a little project for me to work on. And after a while, this word kept spreading naturally because I'm giving away free websites. So, and these are custom websites. And so people, they weren't anything fancy, but they were custom coded because at the time, WordPress was not as popular. WordPress themes were not as popular. So, I had to whip everything up from scratch. And I would do that after school. And I was in high school at the time, and I was in varsity football and I was in track and field. So I had all this stuff when I was a student government. But then on the weekends when my friends were like, hey, let's go party or let's go do this, I was embarrassed to tell them, sorry, I can't go. I'm going to make websites all weekend.
I'd rather be programming all weekend long, right?
Exactly.
It's absolutely addicting because I did the same thing. I picked up a book in 1998 called learn HTML in 24 hours. And I was in my garage learning how to code, and it's like, wow, I can actually make something come up on the screen. And it was really, really exciting. But, the story starts, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, whatever you are out there, 13 and 14 years old, he was starting this already and already getting like attention. And it all started from a course, actually on accident at school. He was participating in a reading club, from what I understand, right? And it kind of merged on into something that became great. But one particular article is what really launched things and changed things for you. And I know you would love to talk about that.
Oh yeah, well there was one blog that I was working on about the iPhone launch in 2007, and I fell in love with the iPhone. I saw it coming out, and I realized that I want that phone, and but at the time it was, I don't know, $700 and something, and coming from a family, we're by no means rich, wealthy, any of that. I mean, really, I grew up in West Phoenix. Inner city, high school, all of that. So definitely not coming from any financial wealth. I didn't know any better growing up. My parents did a really good job at giving me everything that I needed. But, so anyway, I wanted this iPhone, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to afford it, but I'm going to write about it because I'm obsessed with it. And this was really the first time I had really dove deep into Apple computers. We had some at school. We certainly didn't have any like that at home, but we had them at school, and so I knew that I liked Apple computers, and I was actually I joined this photo editing class in I think it was 8th grade, I believe, when I had this class. I joined it because a bunch of my friends were joining it. I didn't really want to edit photos, and it was really for like the yearbook, and you edit photos and stuff. And the program that she had us learn was Photoshop. And so
I love Photoshop. I use it every day.
Photoshop is amazing. And so she had us learn Photoshop at 13, 14 years old on an Apple computer. And then she also had us learn GarageBand, which is also on a Mac computer, and then like all these other programs. And little did I know, by learning that, I got exposure to Apple. Then I learned about the iPhone. And I created this blog. And the blog is all about the iPhone. And so every day I'd go to the library, and the library gave me an hour a day on the computer. And as people the regulars got to know me, like, there's this kid always here on the computer. Like, let me give him my time. So what they would do is, they would come after work, and they would check their email 5-10 minutes, and they'd say, hey Josh, I've got 50 minutes left on my card here. Do you want to use it? I'm going to leave. I just had to check my email. So I started kind of collecting time from these people so I could use the computer more at the library. And which is pretty cool. So anyway, what I would do is I would go to the magazine rack, and I would grab all the tech gadget magazines, and I'd read everything I could about the iPhone. And I'd go online and read more, and then I'd write my own articles. And because I was so obsessed about it and so passionate, that's why I recommend to people, if you're going to do something, like doing it, because, and this is, I didn't know this at the time. This is, and definitely in retrospect. But looking back, I probably would have dropped it. I would have given up if I wasn't as interested in it, because what I was doing is, I was writing 3 to 5 pretty long articles every single day on my little iPhone blog. And I was talking about, when does the iPhone come out? Will it have a camera? All these details I was writing about. And I remember after a couple of weeks, I started getting comments on my articles. And I was like, that's pretty cool. People are reading my stuff, and they're commenting. And they'd ask questions, and they'd be like, so do you think it's really going to be $700? And then I would respond. And of course, I was using a pen name at the time. They didn't know I was this 14, 15-year-old. I don't know exactly how old I was at the time, but I was definitely around 14 years old. So they didn't know that I'm this inner city teenager who is by no means an expert, but an expert in terms of I knew more than most people. So I guess you could consider me an expert. But anyway, I get an email one day from this company, and they say, hey, we like your blog. We're coming out with this iPhone accessory. We'd love to pay you to advertise our upcoming product on your blog. And I'm like, I get this email. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember printing it out, and because I remember you had to pay, I think it was 15 cents or something to print it out the library. I remember printing it out and showing it to my dad, and my dad's like, I don't know, that seems like a scam. I wouldn't trust it. Don't give them any information. And I was like, I'd been working on this blog for a while, and I'm like, I think this could be real. Like maybe it is real. And so I went to Google and I'm like, how much do people pay to advertise on the website? I had no idea what I was doing. Like, how much do people pay? Went to the bookshelves. I found like one or two books on banner advertising, internet advertising. So I read those. And so like a week later, I respond to them and I say, $400? Like I don't know, $400? So I sent that over and they said, okay, sure. How would you like to be paid? Then I go to Google and I'm like, how do people pay people online? And like I found PayPal. And so just like one thing to led to the other. And so I send them my PayPal information. And mind you, this was maybe, I don't know, a couple months after producing 3 to 5 posts a day. So you're talking 200-300 pages on my blog at the time, all free. I had not spent a penny at the time, just my time, which I enjoyed doing, an hour and a half, 2 hours a day of writing. I enjoyed it. And I'd pop these suckers out because for the most part, a lot of them were fact, just like this camera is going to be so-and-so, rumors, my opinion. So anyway, they ended up sending the $400 over for the month. Then I'm like, and they send over this little square image, and I'm like, what the heck do I do with this? So I don't know what to do with this. So I said, okay, I need to somehow put this image on my little sidebar on my website. So I figured out how to do that, and they kept paying. I thought it was a one-time thing. I thought they were like, for 1 month, promote your product. Apparently it was working, and they knew it was working. I had no analytics. I didn't know how many people were visiting my website. I had nothing. All I knew was that I was getting 20, 30 good comments a day, and this guy was
paying you $400 a month.
I was fine with it, and they paid and paid and paid. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 months that those guys paid, and they maybe would have paid longer if I knew how to sell them on some other stuff. But yeah, so that was the first blog that kind of made me realize that I could make money aside from designing websites for other people, which I didn't really know about at the time either. This was kind of my first experience. And then I learned about Google AdSense, which is where you can put Google's ads on your website and get paid for every click. And so then that kind of automated the process because I had trouble finding more advertisers like this guy afterward. And so I'm like, how do I find more people? And then I found AdSense, and I realized it takes me 2 seconds to put a little piece of code on my blog, and Google will automate the process of finding advertisers for my website. And I was getting $1 a click, up to $1 a click.
Wow.
From a penny to $1 a click. And that's when everything just changed for me, because it went from this extreme obsession where I'm like, this is fun, this replaces my video games, to realizing, wait a second, people actually make money at this? I could actually do this? And that's when, because my track was to go to medical school, and that was 100% my track. I was studying anatomy charts. I was really obsessed with going to medical school. And that's kind of where things started to get shifty. And I said, maybe I don't want to go to medical school. Maybe I'm able to help millions of people in another way. And that's kind of when everything changed.
That's so crazy. And people, if you're listening, he just was having fun, and all of a sudden somebody created attention to it. And I think it's something I'm really wanting to learn as well, because you have your passions, but then you want to create a business that's going to make a lot of money. And like I went out and I created a success platform thinking everybody would want it, but I kind of think I made it, yes, on my passions, but how do you make people want it monetarily wise is another whole tricky thing. And for you, it happened naturally. And I think it maybe is continuing to happen that way in all your businesses. But there's kind of like the forcing of the hand, or just having it naturally happen. And that's where all the big success comes, is the natural hand.
Well, there's the natural, and then here's what happened is I started making websites for other people, and they're like, Josh, the website is awesome, love it, and I would spend all this time on it. I remember pixel by pixel moving, and they'd love it, but then they'd say, then I'd follow up with them a few months later and say, how's it going? I'm like, yeah, the website's great, but nobody's coming to it. And I would be like, okay, and I says that, are you blogging on it? Are you doing this and that? And so at the very beginning, I didn't know it was content marketing at the time, but I would recommend, I'd say what worked for me was, publishing a lot of posts, blah, blah, blah. And so they started doing that. And that started to pick up traffic a little bit. But then I found out about search engine optimization, because I found out about, found about keywords, and I didn't use analytics at the time. The first time I used analytics, I was blown away.
Isn't that
because
great?
because I had already sold a couple blogs to people for pennies on the dollar without even knowing how much traffic they were getting. And going back, I realized that they were getting a lot more traffic than I thought, and I could have sold them for more, etc. But I remember I installed Stat Counter, which is a mini version of Google Analytics essentially, and it's still around. And what it does is it's a stat counter. It tells you how many people are on your site each day, etc. So I remember installing that free little tool and realizing that my websites were getting a few hundred people a day and some were getting a few thousand. And I started to kind of, at that point, I was like, why does this one get a few thousand people a month and this one gets 100? And then also from Google AdSense, I would say, why am I getting paid at $2 a click on this website about pregnancy and only 5 cents a click on this one about entertainment? And I was like, what is the difference? And so then I started to learn about, it's not just about hard work, it's also about direction. And direction's been a vital point for my success in saying, and I always say there's a million ways to make $1 million. 995,000 of them are more difficult and take longer, etc. So I'm not necessarily trying to find the easy way out, but if I can work harder and work smarter, I'm going to go for those 5,000 ways because I could run a restaurant for 10 years. I just know I'm probably not going to be successful at that. So I want to find things that match. But here's the thing. The people I was building websites for, they said, why am I not getting traffic? So I go back to the bookshelf. And there wasn't a lot, like now, you just go online, you go to YouTube, you type how to do SEO 2016, and you can watch 100 videos, and you'll be a search engine optimization expert. But at the time, there's mostly books. And so I go and I get search engine optimization for dummies, how to do SEO in 2008, and all these books. And I learn about search engine optimization. And that was my first foray into internet marketing and realizing that it doesn't matter how beautiful your website is. If you don't get anyone to it, look at Craigslist. They haven't changed their design in decades, and they still make $30-50 million a year. So anyway, that kind of, on one side, that kind of hurt me as a designer because I started off as a designer. I'm really into design, and it kind of conflicted with my design side because it's like, Josh, don't spend so much time in design. Focus on the marketing. So then I started to again shift and evolve into a marketer who also knows design, and that was the big catalyst for my success to go from here to here was learning the marketing thing. And it started with search engine optimization, and now we've managed millions of dollars on Facebook ads, Google AdWords. We're one of the top spenders definitely in the Southwest throughout our clients and everything, managing all of their Google AdWords, PPC, all that stuff. So that transition, and that's what made my agency so successful was, yes, we can build you amazing looking websites. I got an eye for design. We've got the best designers. But we're not just going to leave you. We're not just going to build a website and then just leave you. We're going to also build in a lot of the marketing elements. We'll manage it for you. So that allowed me to hire a team because I could then make money on the website, which was a one-time thing, and then transition into them paying me for SEO, this and that. And at the time, for the most part, I was in my college dorm and still even in high school. So I had to learn how to hire contractors because I couldn't have an office. I couldn't be there all the time because I was in school. So I had to run this business with clients on one side, doing calls between classes, all at the same time being on Skype, managing my team, giving them, the project brief, project updates. And so it was a really interesting flow at the time of being in class, closing deals, doing all these things. And I also had a promise to my parents to keep my grades up. And so, one of the proudest moments that I remember is, graduating valedictorian out of 550 students or so, and graduating #1 and doing the speech on stage and all that, and realizing that I was able to, do all this stuff in high school, run a business, and get straight A's. And that was kind of, for me, it wasn't a bragging moment. It was more of a self-realization where I was like, wow, we're pretty amazing. Humans are pretty amazing. And when we push ourselves, we can do some amazing things. But unfortunately, it's very easy to take the easy way out, not work out today, to, overeat or to sleep in or to, it's very easy to do those things. It's very hard to do the others. So what I learned at that point was I am going to go after the things that most people avoid because it's too hard. And one of those things is marketing, sales, advertising. And the best trait you can learn is sales. And if you can learn to do that online, for example, my e-commerce companies, I spend maybe 20 minutes a day running them. And they generate sales 24/7, and they're selling people 24/7. We've got YouTube videos that are essentially infomercials. They're 20 minutes long that have over 1 million views, all organic through search engine optimization, YouTube search engine optimization. So these are the things that was the catalyst. If I had just stayed as a designer and never focused on the marketing and business side, or if I would have stayed just in the tech side, because I can mix between both. I can program, I can build a website, but then I can come here. But it's the marketing and advertising, believe it or not, and it's hard for me to say this as a designer and tech guy, but that is more important than here sometimes, because you need that money because I've never raised any money. I started with $20. I never raised any money. And so you need money to fund the tech, the design, to hire a team. And so I think a lot of small business owners, because I've worked with thousands of them, are missing this piece. And the majority of them want to hire out for it. They want to hire an agency and do that. That was one of the reasons why I got out of the agency world is we started to go upstream and start to work with medium to large size companies. There was a lot of red tape and waiting and all this politics and everything. And I'd be flying out in the middle of the night to save a client contract, because if they fire us, I have to get rid of people on my team. And that was one of the reasons why we transitioned from a services business to running our own websites where we make our own money and all that stuff. My belief is that on the small business side, small business owners should learn how to market their own business online, at least the basics. That way, when you go and you hire someone, you know if they're ripping you off or not, because everyone and their mom and Joe next door seems to be a search engine optimization expert now, or in their advertising. But the truth is, it's not that easy. But it's definitely you can definitely learn it. And for the most part, at least on search engine optimization side, it's free. It just takes your time. And so if I was a small business owner, I'd be spending my weekend writing long 1,000+ word content. Say if I ran a flower shop, I'd write about Arizona flower shop, and I'd write all about that. I'd write about where to buy roses in Arizona, and write all about that. And you'll realize that Google is looking for quality content from experts on relevant websites. So if you got a flower website, boom. And then I spend the rest of my weekend reaching out to relevant blogs. So home design, anything to do with flowers. And I'd ask them, would you link to my flower website? I've got this great guide about all the different types of flowers, and then they'd link to me. I mean, so that's just from the search and optimization. Then you've got Facebook ads, but I would focus on one thing and one thing only. And that's my recommendation to small business owners is try to learn it yourself. And I know you've got 100 things on your plate already, but the most important thing is marketing and advertising, because without that, you don't have money coming in, and you're going to go out of business.
Oops, sorry, I was muted.
Oh, there we go.
I forgot that I was muted. My first company was literally online, generating me income, and I had quite an input form that had a lot of wizard to it, and I was still getting sales, but I was doing the SEO. I was totally doing what you said, like having little articles on what was relevant to my company. And not only was I finding out that things were relevant to my company I make on, but I could also realize that some of the assets in my company could make me money, whether it was sitting in a parking lot or sitting in a thing. For example, I had an extreme sports company, and we had these ramps that would just sit around. We realized that we could rent them out. And so different things you can find out by doing Google searches, and also by seeing people that are visiting your website. You can realize that, oh my God, that's a possibility there too. By accident, I kind of attracted these people for this keyword term, and I can modify what I got to sell to that person. So it's like,
exactly.
And it's really huge. That's awesome. It's really, really awesome for people to understand that this is available to you for free. I mean, Josh started in a library on bought time, an hour a day, and started something, and it realized into something that's now his career and his future. So, and he's excited about it. And it is exciting when you're getting paid to learn something and then displaying it and then it becomes a little of a challenge, but you're learning to show people your stuff and get sales on it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So any parting advice beyond like that? So somebody that's like really loves what they're doing and they want to kind of just continue to do that and maybe turn it into money on accident. Is there any advice on how that whole process unfolded for you that you really kind of felt brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, I would say the first few times I got a little bit lucky, and the next few times I failed. And really, what I started to looking back, I learned a lot from my failures, but also I learned even more from my success. And so I try to focus on learning from success as opposed to learning from failure. And I'm okay with failing, but at this point I have a low. I'm not as tolerant for failure because of the fact that I try to stay in my lane for the most part. And so, for example, the iPhone thing worked out because the iPhone was coming out. It was all rage. All these people were going on to Google and typing in, when does the iPhone come out? Yeah, I mean, millions of people. So, all I did was, I'm over here with a little hat catching some of the change. And that was me. And I'm just like, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I had my little hat. But my thing is, if your focus is on building some revenue for your business, you've got to be producing something. So it's either got to be training programs, ebooks, physical products. You've got to be producing something. And a lot of times we spend most of our week on the consumption side of things, consuming, spending money, or believing that if we spend more money, we'll make more money. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to be producing something. So for me, looking back, I was producing a lot of blog posts a day. So that got me exposure, because exposure comes to producers, not to consumers. So I was writing blog posts. Then I learned about search engine optimization. So I started adding these simple little tweaks to my website, changing my title a little bit, making my content longer, adding nice images, all that stuff. Just doing little tweaks like that. And then I started to see an increase in how much people were coming to my website week over week. And then I found out about that you could track the rankings of your website in Google. So I started tracking the rankings, and I would just do little tests. I'd have a hypothesis, I test it. Now a lot of the information is available online, but what I would say is, I love what I do, and I love the internet, and it's changed my life. It's changed my family's life, my friends' life, a lot of people's lives. And what we look at now, based off of what we learned, is we'll look at the data ahead of time. And so the thing is, people don't buy prevention, they buy cures. And so you've got to figure out a way to tap into existing wants and needs instead of creating new ones. So every time someone comes to me and they've got an invention, or we're the first to ever do this, I say, well, either you're ready to raise a few $1 million, or do you have a few $1 million, or are you prepared for failure? One of those three. It's very rare that you're going to come from absolutely nothing, create something entirely new, a new market. It's going to be really tough. So, if this is your first time in the rodeo, or you've never had $1 million success, you should really focus on tapping into what's already there in people's minds. And so, for example, if you have a product and it's not selling well right now, you got to look at price points. You've got to look at pain points. What pain points are you addressing? Are you addressing your own pain points? Maybe those aren't the pain points of the majority. And so, for example, across my network of companies now, we have e-commerce companies where we sell products. A lot of our products that we sell are need-based. So what I mean by that is something has to break before they come to us. And what's great about that is I don't really have to sell, because the best time to sell antivirus software is after you had a virus. And so that I challenge people to think about, based on what your industry is, let's say flowers, and that's a tough example, but I'll go with it, is people buy flowers usually around Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. So is there a way? Oh, here's an example. There's a company called Spirit Halloween Stores. What they do is they come in, I think they come in August, September, October, maybe November. They're like 3 months of the year for Halloween. And what they do is they get these vacant buildings.
I've seen that, yeah.
You've seen that? Circuit City and all these old companies that have moved out. They come in, they rent the building for 3 months. That's it, 3 months. And they sell the heck out of their Halloween supplies. And then they disappear. And the reason why is because people don't buy costumes in January. I mean, generally they don't. So for them to have a retail store for the entire year, this doesn't make sense. And so what I recommend is looking at your business and looking at the products you sell. What pain points are you reaching? Are they true pain points? Look at the there's a book called Cash Advertising, and he talks about the Life Force 8. And there's 8 things that people really, really want. They want to live longer. They want extension of life. They want to live a better life, especially Americans. We're really focused on now because we're such a first world country that we're now worried about. I want to live longer and I want to use this and this. So life extension, companionship. So dating is always a really big industry, and it always will be. Dating, love, bettering yourself. So whether that be weight loss, nutrition, looking better, anti-aging, those are existing needs. And so if your product, and you can Google Life Force 8, if your product doesn't touch one of these 8, it's kind of unlikely that it's going to be a big success. It'll still be a success, but it's not going to be a huge success, because what we do is with our products now, for example, I have a female beauty products line. It's more of a nutritional supplements and beauty products. And so we tap into existing insecurities, not to exploit them, but our products actually do help. So for example, with like women that may have a lot of blemishes on their face, like I have like redness here. And so, we have a product that, helps kind of conceal that. And another one that we have is like for women's hair, they want a thicker, longer hair. And so, things that women are already thinking, we're just tapping into that and saying, have you ever wanted to have longer, more luscious hair? Have you ever been stopped on the road and girls complimenting you because you have such long hair and asking you, what do you use? If not, then there's something I want to tell you about. And so that's, that's how, writing sales copy and learning how to do that, again, free. And that was one of the biggest things I learned was how to write. I don't really like writing normally, like just like writing stories, or I don't normally like writing, which is funny because that's how I got started. But what happened is I got burnt out after a while writing hundreds and thousands of blog posts. I got burnt out. I said, I don't want to do that again. I learned how to hire content writers for between $5 and $25. They would write the posts for me. And then I could focus on the marketing side because that was more important to me. And it's much harder to hire a marketer than it is to hire a writer. So I focus on that. But anyway, I remember trying to hire a sales copywriter because I had created an ebook at the time, and I was selling it for $97. And I was having a hard time selling it. I said, my sales copy must be horrible, because my sales copy was just talking about benefits of my product. It wasn't touching pain points. And so then I started picking up these books, Influence by Robert Cialdini, Cash Advertising by Drew Eric Whitman. Those 2 books are pretty good to start with. And it talks about tapping into what people are already thinking. And so I changed my ebook from, instead of saying 32 recipes that will help you lose some weight, look better, blah, blah, blah. No, it was like, have you ever tried to put on a dress, and as you're putting it down, your belly fat gets in the way, and that just makes you feel so unhuman sometimes. And then have you ever eaten a hamburger and then afterwards felt guilty about it, and like you probably shouldn't have eaten that much? Trust me, I've been there. And that's why I put together this ebook so it's more of a storytelling, tapping into having a conversation with what's already going on in their mind. And so I would say everyone can do this. Everyone can do this. Even with flowers. You say, do you feel bad because you work so much that you hardly have time to see your mother? Mother's Day is the only day that you really reach out and spend time with her. Why don't you buy her flowers randomly? Imagine the look on her face. And I put some testimonials there. It says, I bought my wife flowers randomly one day, and she was so amazed. And, without getting too much details, I was no longer in the doghouse, and we had a great night that evening. Things like that. And so now you're tapping into companionship, wanting to be accepted, marital issues, sex. You're tapping into these existing emotions and thoughts with your flowers. And so that's what I would recommend. And that's when I went from selling one ebook a month to selling 1,000 a day. Like it was that overnight. Obviously I had to drive traffic to it, but I had learned SEO. I started to do, Facebook ads and all these things. So that part I was doing. But if you're buying traffic, but you don't understand, your product isn't targeted to those pain points, you're wasting money. And so those are some of my tips. I know I can unpack that for days.
That's so huge. That is, really, I'm learning that myself right now. I've got great products, but I'm not hitting pain points. I'm telling them about benefits. I'm telling them about, oh my God, this has worked great for me. But I'm not hitting, like you said, does that dress fit you, or so on and so forth. It's pretty important to understand those values when you're selling something. It's unfortunate that that's how people buy stuff, is they have to go by pain, not by success. But that's how it is. That is how it works. If you post something on Facebook about success, you get like 2 likes. But if you post something about pain, you get people reaching out in every way, shape, or form. Oh my God, I feel that too. Oh my God, I've been there with you. Oh my God, you know what I mean? It's 1,000% difference. Probably 1,000% difference.
Well, one of the examples. So I do very little consulting now, but I do when I can. I try to set a few hours each week to do it. I'm so busy running my own companies, but and one of the companies I was consulting with not too long ago sells anti-aging products for baby booming women, and there's a lot of companies that do this now. But they got a testimonial from a woman who was recently divorced, and she was feeling really down about herself. And she's writing this long email, and she's like, I felt really down about myself, didn't think that I would ever find love again. And, after finding your products, I ordered just a small size to try it out. And my skin started to be more moisturized, and I realized it was a little bit more shiny and glowing. And when I saw myself in the mirror, I instantly realized that, I've still got it. And, and I can go out there, and I had this newfound confidence. And, and now I'm dating, I've got dates lined up. And she wrote this thing, and I remember, because this is what I did. I asked the client I was consulting with, I said, hey, you guys got any testimonials? Maybe something that's not on your website, because the stuff that's on your website is crap. So let me see some other stuff. And so they sent me a bunch of lists, and this one stuck out. I said, this is perfect. I said, this is what you need to put on your Facebook ads. You need to tell the story of this customer, and those do really well when you tell a story of a customer. And so, they changed her name obviously for privacy purposes, but that's, Maria so-and-so, recently got divorced. And so it tells a story, and, we set up a Facebook ad campaign for women over 40, and what's cool about Facebook is you can go on there and you can say women over 40, and you can say divorced. Yep. And you instantly have, I don't know, a couple million women instantly. And so now you put this little message, and you got to get an interesting picture. And so we found a picture of a woman like opening her eye with like some cream, and it just grabs your attention. And that's important, because you want to grab the attention. If you've got good products, this is what I always say. If you've got a good product and you can stand behind it, you should have no shame in advertising it. And you should have no shame in being a little bit aggressive, as long as you're legal, ethical, and you're not lying. You can be a little bit aggressive with your product as long as it's good and it's going to actually help people. And so anyway, this campaign went from like less than 1% click-through rate to almost a 10% click-through rate. So 10 times the difference. What happened was, since more people are clicking on it, Facebook was like, oh, this must be relevant, so we're going to drop the cost per click. So they're paying less per click. They're getting 10 times as many clicks, and the conversion was to the roof, because people were now buying because of their emotion, and they could connect. And they said, you know what, I felt that way after my divorce too. And, and I haven't really gone out and dated because I haven't felt that confident. And at the end of the day, if it's just a moisturizer and it works, but it makes them feel a little bit shinier, or it makes them want to put more makeup on because now they have shinier skin or whatever. If it makes them feel better, we've done our job. And that's what I told him. I said, you're not selling, stop selling the technology of the cream and SPF so-and-so.
Yeah.
People don't really care about that.
Yeah.
They don't. All they care about, for example, organic, vegan, they don't really care about that. They just care. I mean, some people do, of course. I'm generalizing, but I'm saying that some people don't care about that. They care more about, am I going to gain weight by eating this? Is it going to make me sick? Am I going to get cancer because it's genetically modified? People are, for the most part, selfish, and I mean that in the best way possible. I mean that in a good way.
Right.
You should be selfish. They're worried about their kids. What if my kid eats this and gets sick? What if I eat it and I get fat? I've got this reunion coming up, and I got to look really good. So, those are the things. And for my female beauty products line, we focus on creating the highest quality products. We are on the premium side of things. We're more expensive than our competitors. But we tap into those things that say, have you ever woke up and felt 10 years older? And they grab people's attention like, oh my gosh. So, well, not 10 years, but maybe a year or two older. And then just those little hooks that grab them and having a conversation. So, you got to look at, are you tapping into the life force 8? The things that people are already wanting, needing. And does your website captivate that? Because you have 5 seconds or less to sell someone when they land on your website. If they're not sold by then, they're out of there, gone. And this is on all the highest I've ever seen on our e-commerce websites was about 6 or 7% conversion rate, and that's like sky high. Otherwise, it's usually 2, 3, even down to 1%. Which means 1 out of 100 will buy. So 99 leave and never buy again. And so that's why it's important on one side to hit those pain points right away. When they land on your page, it should say a little bit the name of your product and then like 3 bullet points of the pain points it's targeting. Never feel lonely again. Get so many dates that you'll run out of room on your schedule. So it's like targeting those pain points. And don't just say lose weight, because that's just a general claim, and you gotta be careful with that. But if you can say help speed up your metabolism so you burn fat without working out or something, and obviously you want to back up these claims, but be specific, target those pain points. Another one is, for example, if you have a nutrition, there's a lot of people with nutrition guides, ebooks, all that stuff, and they're going after everyone. What I say is, go after a specific audience and really speak to the audience. Mothers who recently had a child and losing the baby fat. Very emotional. It's very hard. And they're very likely to invest in themselves because they just gave birth. So what you do is you go on Facebook, create an ad, and you say, losing the baby fat has never been easier thanks to this new guide. And they click it, and you talk to them about, explain to them why their body gains weight during pregnancy. Teach them, inform them, get them to join your list. 7 recipes for women that recently had a baby to help them lose that stubborn belly fat. They put in their email. Then you start telling them stories. Pull testimonials from people that have used your product, or pull Yale and Harvard research studies that talk about how the metabolism drops after having a baby and how to curb that. And maybe you have a book or a pill or whatever you have to help them, to generally help them. It's going to be a lot easier to sell it because you've informed them, you've taught them, they trust you now, and they're in dire need for this. And now you go from, because I hear this all the time, I ask them, who's your target market? Well, everyone wants to lose weight. I said, wrong answer. Unless you have a $1 billion budget like Coca-Cola, your target's not everyone. It should be women aged 25 to 35 who recently had a baby in the Southwest, let's say, for example, or in California, or in La Jolla even. You can go so specific nowadays with Facebook ads. And for example, maybe you have beach workouts. So maybe you create a beach workout program for those that live nearby beaches. So you sell to Miami, people in Houston, people in La Jolla, people in whatever. You sell to everyone near a beach. That's it. Because it makes sense. And your product will stick out because it's no longer just lose weight, general workouts. It's like, use the beach to work out. And then in your copy, you can say, do you live by a beach but hardly visit the beach? And do you feel like, you work so hard, you don't ever get out to enjoy yourself? I challenge you to go to the beach twice a week by yourself. Take this guide with you. It's only $47, and it's going to give you exercises, yoga. It's going to strengthen your body. It's going to strengthen, most importantly, your mind. And that's a big market right now. Is Americans have so much going on in their mind. It's not real. It's really in their mind because they're on their phone, they're on Facebook, they're on email, and this productivity is big right now. Selling productivity stuff. Remember, that's one of the life force 8. People want to get better. They want to be more organized. So anyway, those are my 2 biggest tips, and those literally take a business from losing money to making money, and then once you're making money, you can scale it up. And I've had campaigns on Facebook go from $100 a day to spending $20,000 a day in Facebook ads, just because once we figure that out,
yeah, exactly,
you want to spend
as much as you can, because it's always profit. Yeah.
Max out your credit cards, ask money from anyone on the road, do whatever the heck you got to do, because if your ROI is there, you better be spending like crazy, and don't be afraid to do that. But it's figuring that piece out that 99% of people get lost.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, Josh, this was awesome. I could keep this going forever, but I have another podcast lined up here right now. Everybody, Josh here today, and he's given us I've learned a ton here today. This is our longest, this is 45-minute podcast here today. This is officially the longest one in history of the 5-Minute Bark. But I tell you, I'm going to listen to this again over myself a few times because I've learned a lot here today. And I hope you did out there too, everyone. Josh, thank you so much for everything here today.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are interested in this, if you go to Tomi Academy, TOMI Academy.com, I put together a free email newsletter where I share things that are working in my own businesses. I make 99.9% of my money running my own businesses. I don't make any money teaching, but I put together this newsletter. I also have a private mastermind that I also run, that those that are interested in joining can do that. And that's just where I share what's working at the moment, my experiments, all that. And then, I also take in questions and all that. So if you guys are interested in that, that's Tomi Academy, TOMI Academy.com. And Dennis, thanks for having me on. I really had a good time.
We'll definitely have to talk more after this for sure. So.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. So everybody out there, 5-Minute Bark, I hope you listened to this here today. I encourage you to rewind it at another time when you're walking your dog, or you're on a drive to school or work. Re-listen to this because there's a lot of value here today. I've been around this business for many years, and there are some key points that I missed out on here today that I need to learn, that I'm going to learn. I'm going to pick Josh's brain forever. He's going to hate me because I'm going to bug him every day. But there's a lot to learn here today. And you're right. Once you get that right formula, you people, it doesn't matter how much. I mean, you could throw $1 million at it, and if it's turning a profit, it's turning a profit. A profit is always a profit. But if you're spending money on advertising on Facebook and you're just seeing $0 come back, or even 70% of your 100%, it's still a negative. But once it's in the positive, you can just keep throwing money at it, and it's a positive, no matter how big the investment. For example, if you invest in a company, the more you throw into it, the more nickels and dimes you make. So that's it for today, everybody. Thank you again, Josh, for coming on here today. This is the 5-Minute Bark. You're watching the 5-Minute Bark podcast on YouTube. If you like this episode, you just may like many more. Subscribe today by clicking the red subscribe button in the top right-hand corner.